Welcome to Moonfall Inn. No matter what you've been through today, there is always a lamp lit for you here. Now, hand your weariness to me, and let us slowly enter tonight's story. Tonight, we read Pride and Prejudice. When first impressions become final judgments. When silence is mistaken for arrogance. When the sharp edge of wit accidentally wounds a hidden heart. How many layers of misunderstanding lie between one soul and another tonight? Let us return to a world of balls, estates, letters, and quiet conversations. A world without war or famine, yet one where another kind of silent, fierce battle rages, the probing, misunderstanding, and defense between hearts. Its themes are ancient, yet they come alive again in every new social gathering. This book is called Pride and Prejudice. It is more than a love story. It is a detailed map of how we see others, and how we allow ourselves to be seen. In a drawing room in Steventon, Hampshire, there often sat a quiet observer. She watched the visitors coming and going, listened to the idle talk after tea, and noted every subtle expression, every sharp dialogue, every undercurrent of class, in her heart. Her name was Jane Austen. A woman who never married and poured her entire talent into the miniature carving of 3 inches of ivory. She lived from 1775 to 1817, a time when a woman's name could hardly appear independently on a publication. Her world was geographically limited to villages and small towns, socially centered on the daily lives of the middle gentry. Napoleon's wars only ruffled the newspapers, they never truly entered her drawing rooms. Yet within this small space, she discovered the eternal drama of human nature. Austen wrote Pride and Prejudice when she was about 20 years old. Its original title was First Impressions, a colder, more psychological phrase that reveals the core of the story. We rely on first impressions to make judgments, and those judgments are often the breeding ground of prejudice. As a lady without a large dowry, she knew too well the feeling of being evaluated, labeled. But instead of lamenting, she chose humor and irony as her weapons. Like a master chess player, she placed human weaknesses on the board, letting us see our own reflections with a knowing smile or a flushing cheek. She published anonymously and was not famous in her lifetime. But time has given her the fairest verdict. For 200 years, countless readers have seen in her pages their own clumsiness, pride, and awakening in relationships. She tells us, the deepest wars are fought in ballrooms and drawing rooms. The hardest victory is winning over our own pride and prejudice. Our story begins with news that shakes all of Longbourn. Netherfield Park has been rented by a wealthy young man, Mr. Bingley, with an income of £4,000 or £5,000 a year. For Mrs. Bennet, a mother with 5 unmarried daughters, this is like rain from heaven. Her excitement is boundless, as if she can already see the lace of wedding gowns. At the crowded, noisy ball, the key figures appear one by one. Mr. Bingley is indeed amiable, and his eyes are soon drawn to the gentle and beautiful eldest Bennet daughter, Jane. But his friend, Mr. Darcy, is like a piece of ice dropped into warm water. He is tall, handsome, with an income of £10,000 a year, a true aristocrat. Yet he smiles little, refuses to dance, and looks upon all the excitement with cold reserve. When someone suggests he should invite Elizabeth Bennet to dance, he casts a glance in her direction and says, in a voice loud enough to be heard, "She is tolerable, but not handsome enough to tempt me." In that moment, the music, the lights, the crowd, all seem to fall away. Elizabeth stands there, perhaps still wearing a polite smile. But inside, something clicks into place. A verdict has been passed. In Darcy's eyes, Elizabeth is just a country girl of ordinary looks and low connections. In Elizabeth's heart, Darcy is an arrogant, proud, insufferable man. Darcy's pride has a solid foundation. He is the master of Pemberley, at the top of the social pyramid. His world is orderly, his manners strict. His pride is a layer of armor, protecting him, but also isolating him. He is used to looking down on the world. He does not explain himself. He certainly does not seek approval. Elizabeth's prejudice comes from her sharp-edged self-respect. She lacks her sister Jane's beauty and a large dowry, but she has rare wit, independent judgment, and fierce spiritual pride. When faced with the contempt of the upper class, her response is not cowardice, but even sharper observation and skillful irony. Her prejudice is a shield, defending her inviolable inner territory. Two lines, originally parallel, are forced to intersect because of the people and events around them. Meanwhile, Elizabeth's dear friend Charlotte Lucas, for the sake of a reliable storage room, marries the ridiculous and conceited Mr. Collins, her cousin. Elizabeth is horrified by this loveless marriage, and it only strengthens her own pursuit of spiritual compatibility. Then, the handsome officer Mr. Wickham appears. Charming and eloquent, he tells Elizabeth that he was the godson of old Mr. Darcy, who had left him a legacy. But the younger Darcy, out of jealousy, deprived him of his inheritance and future. This tragic story fits perfectly into Elizabeth's already established image of Darcy as cold and proud. Her prejudice now has solid proof, and it grows lush and strong. At the same time, Jane's relationship with Bingley seems to be going well, but suddenly meets with a cold front. Bingley leaves Netherfield without a word. Elizabeth is convinced that Darcy is the cause. He despises the Bennet family's humble connections and has broken her sister's happiness. Old grievances and new hatreds, her dislike of Darcy seems unshakable. Yet feelings are the least rational of things. Darcy, that self-proclaimed cool and logical man, finds himself hopelessly drawn to Elizabeth. He loves the intelligence in her eyes, her conversation so different from other ladies. His love torments him, because it goes against his reason and his character. After a fierce inner struggle, he chooses to confess. It is a sultry afternoon. Thunder is brewing in the air. Darcy finds Elizabeth alone at home, and delivers one of the most famous, and most disastrous, proposals in literary history. No tenderness. No pleading. Only an uncontrollable, condescending passion. He speaks at length of his conflict, how he has wrestled with the disparity in their social standing, how he has overcome his worries about her indecorous family. He even directly criticizes her relatives, her vulgar mother, her frivolous younger sisters. Elizabeth's anger pours down like the long-awaited rain, fierce, clear. All her accumulated resentment, for Jane, for Wickham, for her own wounded pride, coalesces into a blade of words. From the very beginning, your manners have convinced me of your arrogance, your selfishness, your disdain for others. I have disliked you for months. Before I had known you a month, I felt that no one could ever tempt me to marry you. She goes further, accusing him of ruining Wickham's future and destroying her sister's happiness. Each accusation is a precise slap on Darcy's proudest face. This scene is the abyss of their relationship, but also the first ray of light that enters that abyss. The next day, Darcy hands Elizabeth a letter. It is not a plea for reconciliation, but a calm defense and statement. In the letter, he does two crucial things. First, regarding Bingley and Jane, he admits his judgment was wrong, but insists his concern was for his friend. He observed that Jane's feelings did not seem passionate, and he feared Bingley would be hurt. Second, regarding Wickham, he reveals a completely opposite truth. Wickham is a prodigal and a scoundrel, who not only squandered his inheritance but also attempted to elope with Darcy's 15-year-old sister, Georgiana, to get her fortune. Alone, Elizabeth reads the letter again and again. First with resistance, then with shock, finally with overwhelming shame and remorse. The facts she had so firmly believed begin to crack and rearrange themselves. She remembers the too smooth indignation in Wickham's speech about Darcy. She remembers the occasional, barely visible concern in Darcy's eyes when speaking of his sister. She has been standing on a moral high ground, judging Darcy, only to find that she herself has been blind, misled by appearances, swayed by her own emotions. How despicably have I acted? She cries to herself. I, who have prided myself on my discernment, I have been blind, prejudiced, absurd. She walks alone for 2 hours on the path to the parsonage, letting the storm of thoughts wash over her. It is a painful shedding of the old self. Old beliefs are forcibly stripped away, and new, truer beliefs begin to sprout in the pain. By chance, Elizabeth travels with her aunt and uncle and visits Darcy's estate, Pemberley. She had imagined it would be filled with her host's pride and vanity. But what she finds is elegance, taste, and quiet dignity. From the housekeeper, she hears of a different Darcy, kind, generous, a good master, the devoted protector of his sister. When Darcy unexpectedly returns early and they meet again, Elizabeth sees a man making an effort to change. He has softened. He is polite, even humble. He tries, awkwardly, to converse with her less elegant relations. Then, a letter arrives from home. Her youngest sister, Lydia, has run away with Wickham. It is a scandal that could destroy the Bennet family's reputation. In the midst of their despair, it is Darcy who secretly finds the couple, forces Wickham to marry Lydia, and pays off his gambling debts, saving the Bennets' honor. He does all this in secrecy, asking for nothing in return. When Elizabeth learns the truth from her aunt, her heart is beyond words. The man she had called proud and cold has silently, selflessly, rescued everything she holds dear. This time, action speaks louder than any words could. Then, Darcy's aunt, the haughty Lady Catherine de Bourgh, comes storming to Elizabeth, demanding she reject Darcy. Elizabeth, with dignity and courage, refuses to bow to her threats. Her answer gives Darcy hope. He comes again. This time, his proposal is stripped of all pride. Only a sincere confession remains, my feelings and wishes are unchanged. But one word from you will silence me forever. And Elizabeth's answer is warm and certain, my feelings are very different from what they were. Austen does not end the story simply with they lived happily ever after. She gives us a meaningful conclusion. Elizabeth and Darcy marry on a foundation of mutual understanding and respect. Meanwhile, Lydia, who sought only excitement, ends up in a dull, troubled marriage with the charming but worthless Wickham. Different choices. Different textures of life. Worlds apart. Of all the scenes, the one that touches me most, that best reveals Austen's psychological depth, is not the dramatic first meeting at the ball, not the explosive proposal, not even the final reconciliation. It is that long, solitary walk Elizabeth takes on a country lane, the evening after she receives Darcy's letter. Picture it. A young woman has just experienced an earthquake of perception. The world she believed in, Darcy the villain, Wickham the victim, herself the righteous judge, has collapsed before cold evidence and calm narration. This collapse is not a simple "oh, I was wrong." It is a shattering of her entire self-image. She had always prided herself on her sharpness and judgment. Now she sees that her sharpness has only served her prejudice, and her judgment was built on sand. Austen writes, "She grew absolutely ashamed of herself. How could I be so blind? How could I be so prejudiced? I am only now beginning to understand myself, but I fear it may be too late." She walks for 2 hours, thinking, re-examining everything. When at last she feels tired, she turns back, hoping to wear a pleasant face when she enters the house, and resolves to suppress her turbulent thoughts so that she may speak naturally to her family. There is no violent action in this passage, only a storm within. For 2 hours, she confronts her true self, and her ugly prejudice, alone. That burning shame is the pain of a soul cleansing itself. And what moves me most is the final sentence, "She hoped to look as cheerful as usual when she stepped inside." She does not dump her inner collapse on her family. She does not seek comfort through external drama. She chooses to digest this spiritual catastrophe alone, and on the ruins of her broken beliefs, with her own strength, rebuild a rational order. This path is Elizabeth's coming of age. Before it, she was a clever but dangerously credulous girl. After walking it, she becomes a mature woman who knows how to reflect and face her own flaws. The greatness of the scene lies in its depiction of true courage, not the courage to challenge the outside world, but the courage to challenge the self-righteous self. She is quiet, solitary, yet radiant. Pride and Prejudice takes place in an English village 200 years ago. Yet its inner anxiety pierces through time and points directly at each of us today. How, surrounded by social signs and personal emotions, can we truly know another person? Darcy's pride comes from his deep identification with his own class, intelligence, and judgment. That identification forms an invisible wall, preventing him from seeing people outside that wall, like Elizabeth and her family, as equals. His gaze is downward, filtering. Elizabeth's prejudice comes from her overconfidence in her own insight. She quickly labels Darcy as the arrogant one, and from then on, she collects only evidence that supports that judgment. Her ears are selective, closed. Pride makes one refuse to understand. Prejudice makes one distort understanding. Together, they send two potentially compatible souls walking in opposite directions through a fog of misunderstanding. How many of life's relationship failures, unnecessary conflicts, and groundless hostilities have their root in this? Our brains naturally prefer simple narratives and clear labels. Once we tag someone as arrogant, friendly, hypocritical, we unconsciously use later information to confirm that tag, ignoring or twisting anything that doesn't fit. Elizabeth's trust in Wickham's story is a perfect example of this psychological trap. Breaking this inertia requires a powerful external shock. For Elizabeth, it was Darcy's letter, a wedge driven into her closed cognitive system, forcing her to stop and re-examine everything. Each of us may need such a letter in our lives, a failure, an unexpected act of help from an adversary, a truth that overturns our worldview. Painful as they are, These moments are the catalysts of inner growth. The turning point in Darcy and Elizabeth's relationship is not when Darcy falls in love with her. It is when Darcy begins to see her as an equal, a worthy partner in conversation. His second proposal is no longer "I condescend to love you, but may I be fortunate enough to win your love." And Elizabeth accepts him not for his wealth or status, but because she has seen his integrity, his sense of responsibility, his willingness to change. Their union is the voluntary connection of two independent souls on a foundation of mutual understanding. This reminds us, in love, friendship, or any meaningful relationship, the healthy foundation is always an equal respect that sees the other as a whole person, not just their labels or functions. Austen's greatness lies in that she does not brandish a moral stick to whip Pride and Prejudice. She shows us human weaknesses with a light, humorous irony. She mocks Mrs. Bennet's vulgarity and Lady Catherine's tyranny. She sympathizes with Charlotte's realistic choice and understands Lydia's shallow vanity. Her humor is not cruelty. It is a compassionate insight. She tells us that human weaknesses are universal. Rather than righteous anger, we would do better to observe, including ourselves, with a bit of self-reflection and empathy. This literary attitude teaches us a wisdom of reconciling with the world and with ourselves. In the end, Pride and Prejudice leaves us with an invitation to understanding. It invites us to be wary of the easy conclusions in our minds. To push open the heavy door called first impression. To listen with more curiosity and patience to the story of another soul. In this fast-paced age where everyone is eager to take a stand, pick a side, and pass judgment, this slow, patient understanding may be the last oasis preventing the desertification of our hearts. Closing the book, the music of the Longbourn Ball seems to linger in our ears. The morning light of Darcy and Elizabeth's reunion at Pemberley still glows before our eyes. The story has a happy ending, but the challenge of misunderstanding and understanding remains forever fresh. Now, before you fall asleep, I invite you to do a very private, very quiet thought experiment. In your contact list, or somewhere in your past, is there a Darcy or an Elizabeth, someone who, because of an awkward silence, a hurtful word, an embarrassing moment, you silently labeled, and who has since lingered outside the door of your heart? Your story with them may have frozen in a version full of misunderstanding, unupdated for years. Perhaps you no longer keep in touch. Perhaps you only nod when you meet. You may think too much time has passed and there is no need to revisit it, but tonight, with this story in mind, I am not urging you to contact them or seek reconciliation. I am simply inviting you, in the softest corner of your heart, to allow the possibility, just the tiniest possibility, that their story could be rewritten. Just in your imagination, loosen that hardest of judgments for a moment. Imagine that behind those hurtful words, there might be anxiety you never knew about. Beneath that cold behavior, there might be an awkwardness that could not express itself. Like Darcy's letter that changed everything, might there be another side to the story that you have never heard? This experiment is not about them. It is about your own openness of heart. It will not change reality overnight. But it will be like a tiny crack, letting the light of understanding into the corner sealed by prejudice. After all, we spend a lifetime practicing two things. 1. Bravely expressing our true selves. The other, gently listening to the unspoken world of another person. And the second often requires us to first lay down our own verdict. Good night. May we all, in this complex forest of human relationships, have fewer arrogant declarations, and more patient exploration. Less fog of prejudice, and clearer understanding. Because in the end, how we see others determines the world we live in. Good night.